Hey y'all, it's me again, back with another video. And before we get started with anything, I just want to say, wow, I'm shocked at all the attention my last video has gotten. That video is now my most viewed and liked video of all time. And at first my reaction was,
Who are you people?
but seriously, the amount of positive feedback on my last video was astounding. I have never received this much support for a project before. I had people complimenting my art style, others giving suggestions, some trying to help me fix that one bug I was struggling with, and even people who wanted to play the game already. And all I can say is thank you for all your kind words, and you all have pushed me to do my very best with this project. But enough of that, it's time to get into this month's changes. Actually, before that, I had to do the obligatory reminder to like and subscribe so you can keep up with the game's updates. Okay, now on to the rest of the video. Since last time, there have been some huge changes, the biggest one being the player's moveset. You see, the whole vacuuming mechanic just wasn't as fun as I thought it would be, and when designing rooms and testing gameplay, I found myself ignoring the vacuum and just using the broom, since it was much easier to use and got rid of enemies quicker. And because of that, there was no real incentive to collecting garbage. Even ignoring half of the player's mechanics, the broom wasn't fun to use either, since all you did was spam the melee attack button. Not to mention, the mechanic didn't really lend itself to creating interesting level design. There's only so many things you can do with level design with the ability to suction things up as your only option. So I went back to the drawing board, trying to come up with mechanics that would be fun, tie into level design well, and just feel good to play. And this was a lengthy process, because first I had to think of an idea, then implement it into the game, then test it with room layouts, and then scrap it if it turned out to be less fun than I imagined. And each attempt took about a week and a half, so I guess you guys can see why this video took too long to get out. And so, I made absolutely no progress for about a month, until finally I struck gold. Here's the idea. The player starts off with one basic move, the pickup attack. On the ground, it allows them to pick up objects and throw them at enemies. However, in the air, it becomes a homing attack, launching themselves towards enemies. The homing attack wouldn't do as much damage as throwing in something at an enemy, but if you hit a standard enemy enough times, instead of defeating them outright, you'll pick them up instead, and you can throw them at the next enemy to keep the chain going. But that's not all. If you hit a special enemy, like say a sword fighter, they'll drop a sword upon being defeated, and picking it up changes your moveset, allowing you to attack with a sword instead. Not gonna lie, this isn't exactly an original idea. It's pretty much Kirby's copy ability, which might make my game feel less unique. But I believe, as long as I can create my own twists on it, and create level design that complements it really well, people will overlook that fact. So with an idea in mind, it was time to get to work. I hope that this time I found an idea that sticks. First up was to change the character's design. Since the player was no longer going to be a human Roomba, I needed to adjust their appearance to fit their new abilities. And since we already have a character like Sonic the Hedgehog, whose homing attack works by them curling up into a ball, I decided that my character's homing attack will involve them curling up into a shell. Thus, the player transformed from a robot into a snail person. They still look mostly the same, as I already liked their design and I didn't want to redo all the animations. With the new appearance settled, I started working on the pickup mechanic. It was a fairly simple process, and now the player can pick up and throw objects in front of them. Originally, I planned for these thrown objects to follow an arc, but aiming was way harder that way, so I changed it. And the player can even pick up these giant bricks, which do more damage than regular throwables. Next was the homing attack, and after a frustrating week and a half filled with errors and bugs, it's now working properly. And when the player uses the homing attack, they'll pick up an enemy over their head, ready to be thrown again. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. This attack only works in the air. On the ground you can only pick up objects, and if you think that's a terrible idea, let me know. With the throwing and homing attack done, it was time to work on abilities. To test them, I created a sword-wielding enemy that drops their sword upon being defeated. And once picked up, the player can now use sword attacks. I even added a color palette swap using shaders to make the transformation more noticeable. But I didn't stop there. I also designed 3 new enemies: a fire enemy, an ice enemy, and an electric enemy. Each drops an ability for the player to pick up and use. And lastly, by holding down a button, you can release the ability you don't want anymore, and you can throw that at enemies. And this all took forever to get done. But finally, the player's mechanics are complete. Now, we can move on to something that's hopefully more interesting. I've mentioned this before in other videos, but I'm terrible at level design, and I avoid it whenever I can. In fact, my last game had randomly generated levels purely because I didn't want to deal with level design. But this time, there's no avoiding it. If I want this game to be fun, I'll just have to try my best. And to get a better idea of what I should do, I played a game that I knew had really good level design. Shovel Knight. And while yes, it is a 2D game and not a 3D one, I think its level tropes are creative enough to the point where I can imagine them in a 3D space. And to get an even better understanding of what makes good level design, I watched exactly one Game Maker's Toolkit video and a whole bunch of videos from Some Call Me Johnny. So I think I know what makes good level design and what makes annoying level design now. Honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought. At first I struggled between making the levels more open-ended or more linear, and in the end I settled for a mix of both, a mostly linear level or branching paths that reward exploration. For example, you could find these added item boxes that contain either lots of currency or health pickups. I also worked on different types of obstacles and platforms. For instance, I added this wheel that, when attacked by the homing attack, can do things such as elevate certain terrain. I also added moving platforms that can either move automatically or in response to spinning the wheel. And my favorite addition are these cannons that I spent some time modeling in Blender. And I added that into the game, and I think it turned out really well. While working on the level, an idea came to mind, and I wanted your guys' opinions on it. And so here's the idea. Each section of a level could have an optional challenge, like carrying a fragile object across without dropping it or throwing it, or finding a bunch of missing sheep for a sheep herder. These missions would add some variety to the gameplay, and I could introduce some level design elements that can act as obstacles to complete them. And if you complete all the submissions in a level, you'll find this portal near the level's end. Interacting with it will trigger this short animation. And in the end, you are transported into a 3D bullet hell arena where you must dodge attacks and destroy this corrupted crystal. And once you defeat the crystal, nothing happens. Okay, look, I spent so much time on this that I haven't really added its purpose yet. I do have an idea in mind, but let me know what you guys think it should be. Maybe you guys will come up with something better than I did. But yeah, I just wanted you guys' opinions on this idea. Should I go through with it or not? And yes, I know what you're thinking. Isn't this just scope creep? The game still lacked a pause screen, so I added one. Nothing too fancy, but it was necessary. I also needed a title screen, so I worked on that as well. I don't have a final title for the game just yet, so for now, I'm just calling it this. It only has 2 options at the moment, but it gets the job done. The game also lacks sound and music. And adding sound effects is easy. I've made plenty of games with sounds before. But music is a whole other beast. And I do want to get better at it, but not just yet. So for now, I used a song I made for a previous project, and now the game feels a whole lot livelier. And that's about all for this devlog. Sorry it took a while. With all the restarts and schoolwork, I didn't get as much done as I hoped. And I really wanted to get a demo out by this devlog, but that doesn't seem like it'll be happening. Maybe by next devlog, I'll have something out for you all to play. But yeah, let me know what you all think about the new player mechanics and the submission ideas. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and make sure to like and subscribe, and comment down below any suggestions you have for the game. And thank you all for watching. Bye.